Chapter 12, an English lesson. At dinner, everyone appeared to be subdued by the mood, even May. After Uncle Jacob read his selection from the Bible, we ate in near silence. I thought the heavy atmosphere in the house might be a result of the weather. Although it wasn't raining, a thick fog had rolled over the great billowing waves. It shrouded the landscape, turning everything cold and dreary. Once again, the weather turned on Cape Cod, and it surprised me with its fickleness and its ability to change so abruptly. I wondered if there was any way to tell now what it would be like tomorrow night. Would it rain and thus put off my rendezvous with Adam Jackson? Does it often get foggy like this at night? I asked innocently as I could. Uncle Jacob raised his eyebrows. Aunt Sarah smiled as if I'd asked the silliest little question, and Carrie looked amused. This time of year it often does. Weathermen might as well toss the dice. As good as they predict these days, Uncle Jacob muttered. Better off just listening to the creak in your bones. Aye, Aunt Sarah said. More potatoes, dear? No, thank you, Aunt Sarah, I answered. I won't be having coffee tonight, Uncle Jacob announced, as if the whole country were awaiting his decision. Got a big day tomorrow. Getting up early to bring the boat to the storm fields in the North Truro for an engine tune-up. I could skip school tomorrow, Carrie offered immediately. He glanced quickly at me because he knew I understood why he would like to cut classes. He hoped I wouldn't say anything. There was no reason to worry. It was none of my business, and I certainly wouldn't want to be responsible for getting him in trouble with Uncle Jacob. I wouldn't do that to my worst enemy. No need, Uncle Jacob said, rising. Carrie's face folded in disappointment. Roy and I can handle it. Well, he said, stretching, I'll have a pipe full in the den and then go to bed. I'd like a peaceful night, he added, glaring at me as if I were a noisy teenager who played rock music late into the evening. I rose up to help Aunt Sarah with the dishes. May wanted me to go to her room to help her with homework, but I explained that I was helping Carrie study for a test tomorrow. She looked disappointed, so Aunt Sarah offered to help her. She still looked disappointed, but I could see she was too considerate to hurt her mother's feelings. After we put away the dishes, I went to my room and waited for Carrie. I had just a little of my own homework left and finished it quickly. He knocked on my door and peeked in timidly. Got time now, he asked. Yes. I pulled up with a chair alongside my own desk. Sit here. I hate this stuff, he complained as he entered. He tried to narrow his vision just to me and the desk, but his eyes flitted from one side of the room to the other. The look on his face was sad and painful, as a raw wound that refused to heal. He caught me scrutinizing him. I don't come in here often, he confessed, anymore. I understand, I said. Skepticism clouded his face and gave birth to a small frown. Did he think that because I had no brother or sister, I couldn't appreciate what it was like to lose someone I loved? It was really hard for me to look at things in our trailer that reminded me of my father after his terrible accident, I explained. Carrie's skepticism faded as I went on. I was closer to him than I am to my mother, and when he died, I thought the world had come to an end. It still doesn't seem the same. Nothing does. He nodded, his eyes softening. I wish I could have gotten to know him. I wish you had too. I wish this family wasn't so vindictive. He tilted his head. What? Cruel, I continued. When you love someone, you don't hate them to death for mistakes they make. You try to understand them, help them, and if that doesn't work, you feel sorry for them. But you don't disown them forever and pretend that they never lived. He stared at me a moment, and then he smiled and shook his head gently. That's something Laura would say. She always looked for the good in everyone. The girls at school mocked her. They were jealous of her, but she was always nice to them. We had lots of arguments about it, he said. It was practically the only thing we argued about. We agreed about most everything else. Even Robert Royce, I asked quickly when he looked at me this time. There were shadows in the emerald depths of his eyes. There was something entirely different. It was blinded by... By what? I asked, intrigued. Blinded by his lies, his phony charm, his handsome face, he replied bitterly. How did you know he was phony? I asked. His letter to Laura seemed sincere. I just knew, he insisted. He always listened to me. She always listened to me. We were close, and not just because we were twins. We really did like the same things and feel the same things. We didn't have to speak to each other lots of the times either. We would just look at each other and understand. She would smile at me or I would smile at her, and that was enough. But after Robert, his gaze drifted, his eyes growing smaller, darker. When he looked at Laura's picture on the dresser. What happened after Robert came into her life? He turned to me, his watery eyes hard. She changed. I tried to help her see, but she wouldn't listen. Maybe she saw what she liked. I offered softly. He grimaced. Why is it that girls who are normally smarter than boys are so dumb when it comes to boys? He asked me. I stared at him. He blinked his eyelids rapidly. He had long, perfect eyelashes, which most girls I know would die to have. That's a matter of what? He interrupted. I was going to say opinion, but it's really more a matter of the heart. He blew air through the side of his mouth. Matters of the heart, he said disdainfully, an excuse for stupidity. Carrie Logan, you're going to sit here and tell me that you don't believe in love? You don't believe two people can fall in love? I didn't say that exactly, he retreated. But it's silly to think that you can fall in and out of love the way you catch a cod. From what I understand, it didn't sound like a good description of Laura. She didn't have lots of boyfriends, did she? That's not the point. She thought that she was in love and that he loved her, but let's just say I know it was a mistake and leave it at that. He glared down at his textbook. I hate this stuff. What does it have to do with what's important? It's important to understand our language so we can express ourselves, I said, my voice hard and firm, like a splinter. Carrie had a way of getting under my skin. He grimaced again and raised his eyebrows. I wasn't intimidated by him. You're not just going to spend all your life talking to lobsters, Carrie Logan. You're going to have to talk to your customers too. If you sound as if you don't know what you're doing, they won't believe you, no matter how good of a fisherman you are. He broke into a smile. Don't get so mad. I'm not mad, I'm... What? He teased. Mad, I said. Why should you have to be talked into educating yourself? We don't live in the dark ages. Even up here in Cape Cod heaven, where everyone is supposedly so perfect, people still need an education, I snapped. He laughed. Okay, help me talk to my customers. I gazed at the page. Clauses are easy to recognize. Just test them. If they don't have a subject and a verb, throw them back like a lobster that's too small. His smile widened. I like that I can understand. I went over what subject does in the clause and then what the verb does. He listened and tried some examples. and then widened his eyes. I understand what you're saying. I just don't understand how you know whether it's an adverb or an adjective. Test it again, I told him. Here's one way. If you can move it around in the sentence, it's an adverb. Look at this one. Because I got sick, I had to go home. I had to go home because I got sick. See? His eyes lit up. Yeah. Your teacher never showed you that, I asked? I don't remember. I guess I wasn't paying much attention to her as I paid to you. Maybe you should be a teacher. Maybe I will. Do those exercises at the end of the chapter. I'll correct them when you're finished. Yes, ma'am. I went to the closet to sift through my clothing. Tomorrow I would wear one of my own things, I thought, not that I had much from which to choose. How could Mommy not have called Grandma Arlene yet? She knew I needed my clothes. Laura always looked really good in that, Carrie said. I hadn't known that he was watching me. I held the light yellow cotton dress in my hands. You thinking of wearing that to school? I might just wear a pair of jeans and a blouse I brought with me, I said. Laura never wore jeans to school. My father didn't think it was proper. Well, he's not my father, I replied, and I'm not Laura. He shrugged. I'm just telling you. Are you finished with the exercises? No, Then finish, I commanded. Right, he said, turning back. I smiled to myself and considered the yellow dress again. It had a square collar with frilled sleeves and a gentle bellowing skirt. I imagined it might look nice on me. I did want to look nice for Adam, I thought. Finish, Carrie declared. I put the dress back and went to the desk. He had one mistake, but even I might have made it, I thought. Not too bad, I said. I hope I can do it tomorrow. You will, just remember the tricks, I told him. Thanks, he said, standing. I owe you one. He thought for a moment. Maybe I'll do what Grandpa suggested this weekend. What's that? Take you sailing. Would you like that? I thought about Adam. What if he invited me to go motorbiking again? My hesitation jarred him. Don't if you have better things to do. He turned to the door. No, it's just I've never really gone sailing. He looked back at me. Whatever, if you want to, we'll do it. We'll go over the material again on the way to school, I told him. He rolled his eyes. Can't wait, he said, and left. A little while later, I heard him go up into the attic hideaway. I didn't know for certain, of course, but I was willing to bet that he spent more time up there alone since Laura's death than he did when she was alive. We all retreat to different attics when we're unhappy, I thought. I was still looking for mine. Uncle Jacob had eaten his breakfast and left by the time May, Carrie, and I went downstairs the next morning. I decided to wear Laura's yellow dress, and when Carrie saw me in the hallway, he said I looked very nice. It's not going to rain, is it? I asked him. No, it's going to be a nice day and a pretty nice night, he told me. I breathed relief and felt a tingle of excitement, of anticipation. Downstairs, Aunt Sarah was frenzied. Grandma Olivia had called last night and told her that dinner would be tomorrow night. Apparently, from the way she spoke, I understood that dinner at my grandparents' house wasn't merely dinner. It was an elaborate affair. There would be someone else there, some respected member of the community. We would all have to be on our very best behavior, be well dressed, and be more polite than to the Queen of England. Don't forget, Grandpa wants to hear Melody play her fiddle, Carrie teased. Aunt Sarah gasped and gaped at me with an abject terror in her eyes. Oh, I don't think he meant this particular dinner, she said in a voice just above a whisper. Sure he did, Carrie continued, deliberately raising his own voice. We all heard him, Ma. Aunt Sarah shook her head, but Olivia didn't It's all right. I don't want to bring my fiddle anyway, I said. Grandpa's going to be disappointed, Carrie warned. He might just send you back for it. Why don't you bring it along and leave it in the car just in case, he pursued. Aunt Sarah shook her head again, this time more empathetically. Jacob might be upset. I don't know if... I'm not bringing it along, Aunt Sarah. Stop worrying, I declared firmly. I gazed at Carrie, whose green eyes sparkled with mischief. May wanted to know what we were all talking about so intensely. Carrie signed and explained, mimicking me playing my fiddle. Her eyes lit up with encouragement. See, Ma, even May wants her to bring it along, and she can't even hear. Oh dear, Aunt Sarah said, wringing her hands. Stop it, I told him sharply. You're going to get me into trouble. With a tiny smile on his face, he finished eating breakfast quietly. On the way to school, I chastised him. You shouldn't tease your mother that way, Carrie Logan. I wasn't teasing. I'd like to hear you play your fiddle too. It'll spice up the dinner party. It's been enough of them at Grandma's house to know what to expect. They could use a little excitement. Well, under the circumstances, I'm not feeling like fiddling. It only reminds me of my daddy. And Grandma Olivia's house is no place to be thinking about him, I said bitterly. Carrie's impish grin faded. Maybe if they heard you play and learned more about your father after he and Haley left here, they'd be more inclined to feel sorry about these things too, he offered. They should feel sorry. My daddy's gone, and the damage that was done is done forever and ever. Carrie was silent. The subject sank deeply in the pool of our thoughts. We dropped May at her school and continued on to our own, reviewing the material Carrie would have on his English test. As soon as Carrie and I arrived at school, we split up. Fortunately, he didn't hear the girls heckle me when I went to my locker. I'm sure he would have become very angry. We missed you Saturday night, Janet said. Too busy darning socks or something? Or did you have to make cranberry muffins? Lorraine asked. I tried to come, I told her. Betty closed in beside her and Janet to listen to my explanation. But my uncle wouldn't let me go. We told you he wouldn't. We told you to lie, Betty said. But you're just like Laura, aren't you? You're too goody-goody to have real good fun. It must be run in the family or something. Grandpa, Laura, and now you. I bet the mute is the same. She's not a mute, I snapped, my face filling with blood so fast that I thought I would blow the top of my head off. She's deaf, but she can talk. I've heard her talk. Who could understand that, Betty said. The others agreed. If you take time, you can understand her. She's a bright, sweet little girl. Right. Anyway, we all had a good time. A certain boy was heartbroken that you weren't there, Lorraine said, a twisted smile on her lips. As if on cue, Adam sauntered down the corridor, paused when he reached us. All three of the witches from Macbeth fluttered their eyelashes and beamed their most seductive smiles, but his eyes were on me. Good morning, girls. Exchanging feminine secrets, or can I listen in? He asked with a beguiling smile. Even early in the morning, he looked perfect enough just to have walked out of an aftershave advertisement in a men's magazine. We're just telling Melody about the great beach party she missed, Janet said. That's right. It was a great party, he agreed, his eyes still fixed on me. Debbie McKay certainly would have had a good time, Betty said, didn't she, Adam? You'll have to ask her, he replied with a nonchalance that made the three of them giggle. I'm sure we'll find out, Lorraine said. Debbie's the kind who kisses and tells. See you later, Melody, she sang. Yeah, see you later, Betty echoed. The three walked off, leaving me with Adam. Now you know why I want to keep this a secret between us, he said, looking after them. The gossip mongers around here work overtime. I'll walk you to homeroom, he offered, when I closed my locker. Everything else all right? You didn't get into trouble after our ride yesterday, did you? No, I said. Good. I noticed everyone's interest as we continued down the corridor. Even Miss Crenshaw, the librarian, peered over to look through her thick lenses. I really did have a good time with you, Adam said softly. Did you like it too? Yes, I did. Good. Until 8 o'clock, he whispered at the homeroom door. Don't disappoint me. He squeezed my hand and walked away. My heart pounded. Was I really going to meet him? Did I have the courage? His lips had the lure of a forbidden fruit, but oh, how luscious, ripe, and delicious was the promise that they left on my own when he held me in his arms and kissed me. I sighed. When I turned to go to the homeroom classroom, I saw each and every girl was looking my way. All looked curious, many looked envious. That didn't take long, Teresa Patterson said, coming up behind me as I walked to my desk. Pardon? For Adam Jackson to find his new fish, she muttered, walking by. The girls in this school, I thought, gave word caddy a new meaning. Adam wasn't wrong that Carrie had told me much of the same thing. I didn't see my cousin until after lunch in the cafeteria. When I did, he looked very excited and happy. He had taken his English test, and for the first time he felt confident about the results afterwards. Every time I considered an answer, I could hear your voice and your advice. It didn't seem as hard as I thought it would be. Good, I said. I looked past him and toward the cafeteria entrance, hoping to spot Adam. I expected he would want to sit with me, but when he came in, he was with the boys, and all of them went to the table on the right. He gazed my way and smiled. He looked as if he was holding court. Carrie saw the direction of my entrance and my expression of disappointment. Thanks for your help, he said dryly and started away. Carrie, I called. He turned. Mind if I sit with you? I'd rather skip my new girlfriends for the moment. I could see that they had a place open for me at their table, but it would have been like delivering myself to the Spanish Inquisition torture chamber and all. Carrie shrugged and looked in Adam's direction. Suit yourself, he said. It wouldn't be the most exciting table, though. I followed anyway and introduced myself to two of his friends, Billy Beardsley and John Taylor. Their families were also in the lobster and fish business. They asked me a lot of questions about coal mines, but they were frustrated by my limited knowledge of the industry. My father was struck down in shafts locked away from the sunlight and air. I hated thinking about it. He didn't like talking about it much either. Why did he do it then? Billy asked. Carrie and I exchanged knowing looks. It was the best work for the money at the time, I offered, and then Carrie managed to change the subject. At the end of the day, Carrie eagerly waited for me, with a wide, satisfied grin on his face. I wasn't sure if you were going to go straight home, he said, obviously pleased that I was alone. I am. You look as though you have a secret. Oh, I do? He said, starting away quickly. I had to walk fast to catch up. Well, what is it? Nothing much. Carried Logan, I seized him by the elbow and swung him around. Tell me this moment. Mr. Maydew stopped me in the hall as if I was on my way to the building to tell me that he corrected the English tests already. I got a 98. He wanted to congratulate me and asked me how I'd done it. I told him I had a great tutor, and he said, don't stop working with her. Oh, Carrie, a 98? That's the best grade I've ever got, he exclaimed. See? You can do it if you want to. He shrugged. Thanks to you. Anyway, I decided you were right. I have to learn how to talk properly and be educated if I'm going to be a businessman. He was grinning from ear to ear. Congratulations, I'm so happy for you. Let's celebrate, he said. Let's do something special tonight after dinner. I'll take you to town for custard. My heart sank into my stomach. He saw the expression plain as day on my face. What? He asked. I already made a promise to someone, I said. He nodded. Okay, he said and walked ahead. Maybe tomorrow night, I offered, running to catch up. Sure, he said, but let's wait and see. You might have made another promise by then. He shut up like a turtle, his shoulders rising and his neck sinking. It made me feel sick inside. I realized how much it must have taken for him to reveal his feelings to me since Laura's death. And he was already all clammed up. I feel pinched by contradictory emotions. They were like scissors cutting me in half. One part of me was full of excitement, counting on the minutes to my rendezvous with Adam, while another part of me longed to share Carrie's elation and be part of his return to trust, to hope to the world that there is sunshine and stars, and it's not all gloom and tragic memories. Just for tonight, I thought, I wished I could duplicate myself and be at two places at once. But I couldn't, and there just wasn't anything about it to do but feel sorry. Carrie walked ahead of me all the way to May's school, and when he saw her run to me, he just kept walking. See that she gets home all right, he called behind himself. We're coming, wait up, I cried. But he didn't slow down, and May was full of questions and stories. I had to watch him round the bend and disappear, his shoulders still scrunched up, making him look like an old man. It brought tears to my eyes, but I held them back and put on my best smile for May, who chatted away with her hands all the way home. Carrie remained down at the dock with Uncle Jacob until just before dinner. As usual, I helped Aunt Sarah prepare the meal, but right before Uncle Jacob and Carrie returned, the phone rang. Aunt Sarah answered it and called out to me excitedly, "It's your mother, dear." My heart stopped and then started again, pitter-pattering so quickly I thought I would have no voice to speak with. I walked slowly to the living room and took the receiver from Aunt Sarah, wondering if the wires could hold the heat of words that I wanted to scream over them. "Hello," I began. "Hi, honey, I just have a couple minutes, but don't you dare rush off again, Mommy. Don't you dare." "Oh, Melody, we're in Los Angeles and how could you lie to me so much?" My throat started to tighten almost immediately. I thought I would choke before I got my words out. "How could you have kept your real adoptive parents a secret? Why didn't you ever tell me that you and Daddy grew up together?" At a short pause, she replied, "Your father didn't want us to tell you that, Melanie. He wanted to protect you from all that was unpleasant." "Don't put it on him, Mommy. He's dead. He can't answer." "Well, it wasn't just me. He wanted it that way too," she proclaimed. "Why?" I cried. "Why not tell me the truth about how you met and fell in love? Why not tell me why the family was angry?" I demanded. The tears were burning under my eyelids. "Chester thought you were too young to understand, but I'm not too young now. Why did you leave me here without telling the truth, the whole truth about you and Daddy? How could you do that?" She was quiet a moment and then she admitted, "I didn't think you would stay if I told you that, Melanie, and I didn't have much choice at the time. If you are as old as you claim you are, you'll understand. Mommy, these people hate you and they hate Daddy for what you two did. How can I stay here?" "Uncle Jacob will never throw you out, Melody," she said. "And he has no right to be high and mighty, believe me. Don't let him talk down to you. And don't be a troublemaker. But don't take his garbage. I can't stay here, Mommy. And I want to know more. I want to know everything. You will, I promise. You're obviously old enough now to know our side of the story. Who told you anyway, Jacob, Sarah, or Olivia? I saw your pictures. Grandma Olivia had put of you and Daddy in cartons, I told her. They don't mention Daddy's name. They don't talk about his accident. It's horrible. Olivia's doing, I'm sure. The whole time I lived there, I could never call her anything but Olivia, you know? I could never call her mother, she said with bitterness. But why did they take you in their home? Why did they adopt you? It's a very involved story, honey. That's another reason I couldn't get into it before I left Providence Town. Just hold out a little longer. Put up with their snobbery a little longer, she pleaded. Mommy, you never called Grandma Arlene to let her know about my things. I'll do it right after I hang up, she promised. And Alice called and told me that Papa George is in the hospital, very sick. I was expected, honey. Mommy, I can't stay here. Please come back for me or send for me. I'll meet you anywhere. I'll put up with anything. Travel, running about city to city. I'll never complain about anything, I promise. I swear. Melody, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in Hollywood. I have appointments and auditions. Can you imagine? Something wonderful is going to happen, and soon. Just like I told you. Give me a little bit longer. Finish school there, at least. Then, during the summer months, Mommy, tears streamed down my face. Why did they hate you for marrying Daddy? Why didn't they accept it? You weren't blood relatives. We disobeyed Queen Olivia, she quipped. Just stay out of her way. She'll die soon and put everyone out of their misery. Ooh, she said. I just hate talking about them. They made us suffer. Get everything you can out of them. They owe you. That family owes us more than they can ever repay. Do your own thing and ignore them. Uncle Jacob won't throw you out. Mommy, I have to go now, honey. I have an appointment. I'll call Arlene, I promise. But where are you? How can I reach you? We haven't settled in one place yet. I'll let you know, she said. When we're together again, we'll have a long talk, a grown-up talk. I'll tell you everything, every crummy detail. Be good, honey. Mommy! The click sounded like thunder. I shouted louder, Mommy! I squeezed the neck of the receiver until, with all my might, and screamed into it again. Aunt Sarah came running. The front door opened and Uncle Jacob stopped in the corridor with Carrie right behind him. I was crying hysterically now, bawling out of control. What's going on here? What's the meaning of this outburst? Uncle Jacob demanded. She was talking with Haley, Aunt Sarah explained. Well, I won't have this sort of emotional display. Stop it, he commanded. I cradled the receiver slowly, then wiped my cheeks with the back of my hand, glaring at him. The fury in my eyes took him aback, and he blinked. Go clean yourself up, he ordered, or you won't have any dinner. I don't want any dinner. I don't want anything from you, I said through my clenched teeth. Uncle Jacob reddened. Carrie's mouth fell open, and Aunt Sarah gasped. I don't want anything from this horrible family. I ran from the living room. See, Uncle Jacob cried after me as I started up the stairs. And you thought she was like Laura? That's Haley's daughter. I stopped abruptly and turned, glaring down at him. What's wrong with being Haley's daughter? Why do you always say that? What did she ever do to you? I demanded. He looked at Aunt Sarah, then at me. She didn't do anything to me. What she did was to herself and to Chester. What? What? I screamed. Go to your room until you calm down, he said, visibly shaken. I didn't move. What was it that Mommy kept saying? He would never throw me out. How did she know? What made her so sure? Every time I uncovered one secret, there were 10 more buried beneath it, I thought. Go on, he ordered. I'll go where I like when I like, I said defiantly. My boldness surprised us both and left him stuttering for the right words. I trembled, but tried to look calm so I could continue to face him. Ah, suit yourself, he finally said. I'll have none of it. You wanted her here, you put her up here, he told Aunt Sarah. Then he waved his hand as if it was chasing flies and marched through the house. Carrie stared up at me with a stunned look on his face. Oh dear, dear, Aunt Sarah mumbled. I'm sorry, Aunt Sarah, I said. I took a deep breath. I have to rest for a little while. She looked up at me sadly and shook her head. It was all going so well, wasn't it, Carrie? Let her be, he said, and followed after Uncle Jacob. I turned and continued up the stairs to my room. I closed the door and I let my tears of sorrow, tears of fear, tears of loneliness flow freely. I was on my stomach on the bed, so I didn't hear May knock on the door and come to see me. I felt her little hand on my shoulder and turned sharply. She looked as if she were about to cry because I was crying. What's wrong? She sighed. I smiled through my tears. I'm all right, I told her. I'll be all right. Then I sat up and hugged her, clung to her as tightly as I would cling to a life raft in a sea storming with turmoil.